To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reported warnings from a leading scientist that its opposition to gene-edited crop goes against the scientific consensus.
Minister Mariri McAllan.
Presiding Officer, we are committed to maintaining the highest environmental standards in Scotland, and we remain opposed to the use of GM in farming, and that to protect the clean, green brand of Scotland's £15 billion food and drink industry. The use of genetic technologies is a complex and emotive area. Indeed, the UK Government's own public consultation last year saw the public reject the changes that they are now pursuing. So while I am closely following scientific and other considerations on the decoupling of genetic modification and editing, our position hasn't changed, and the UK's bill doesn't change that.
Rachael Hamilton.
I thank the Minister for that answer, but she continues to miss the point. Yet again, she deliberately conflates the two issues of gene editing and GMOs, and that is disingenuous and only weakens their untenable position on this. Presiding Officer, the Minister would seemingly prefer to wait for the EU to tell them what to do, but surely when their own former Chief Scientific Advisor says that they're out of kilter with scientific evidence, does the Minister not agree that she should have a serious rethink on the SNP's position and stop holding our farmers back?
Minister.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. First and foremost, I'm more than happy to confirm to the member that I am absolutely up to date on the issues, and I am not deliberately conflating GM and gene editing, although I'd remind her that she is in a parliament in a country in which gene editing is still part of the definition of genetic modification. I absolutely welcome and actually hold in the highest regard the views of our scientific community, including Professor Dame Glover, and our academic institutions, and indeed our food and farming and food producers. What I also value are the views of the public. This is an emotive and complex area, and matters have to be considered very closely. And in fact, in that regard, I agree with Professor Dame Glover when she said on the 9 yesterday evening, as a scientist, I think it's a very interesting technology, but I do think at the end of the day, it's up to politicians to decide, using all the evidence available. Some of that will be scientific evidence, some of it's economic, some of it will be ethical, and some of it philosophical. Those are exactly the issues that I am considering, unlike the UK Government, who are hurriedly pursuing this post-Brexit deregulation.
Rachael Hamilton.
Presiding Officer, farmers in my constituency are extremely worried that if this SNP Green Government doesn't give their backing to gene editing, then they will be at a major disadvantage compared with their neighbours just south of the border. And that concern is shared with the NFUS, it is shared by the James Hutton Institute, it is shared by the Roslin Institute. Gene editing technology would give our farmers a much-needed boost to help drive down food prices, help our food security issues right now, and support climate change goals. I think the Minister needs to look at what her priorities are here. Are they constitutional obsessions and grievances? Will she listen to the experts and work with the UK for positive change?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, conversely, I think it's the member's constitutional obsession and her colleagues' desire for unity at all costs, which is the problem here. And I wonder if she has read the joint statement which was issued by 30 groups on the 10th of June, including the RSPCA, Friends of the Earth Friends of the Earth generally, not just Scotland, Soil Association and Compassion in World Farming, among others, who've said this bill represents a significant change in the law and has huge implications for farming, food, animal welfare, the environment, the UK's internal market and its trading relationships with key global markets. It's clear that in haste to deregulate, the Government has not adequately considered these implications. And I do hope that Rachael Hamilton and her colleagues will consider that joint statement. But equally, she talks about the threat to Scotland's farmers. The real threat to Scotland's farmers, of course, is an ideological Brexit, the hardest of possible Brexits, pursued during the second wave of a deadly virus, and of course made worse by trade agreements which undermine standards in welfare and the environment and undermine farmers' livelihoods. Where was Rachael Hamilton's concern for farmers when her colleagues were negotiating that?
Fairlie.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Setting aside the science of this matter for just a moment, on a practical level, the fact is, you don't want to hear it. I know you don't want to hear it, but just listen. The fact is, on a practical level, the fact is that Scotland was invited to participate in this legislation the day before the bill was introduced at Westminster. Requests for a sight of the draft of the bill were ignored until the afternoon before it was introduced. Now, this is disrespect verging on thinly veiled contempt from a Tory government that is encroaching into devolved competencies within the remit of this Parliament. So does the Minister share my view that the Tories in London want Scotland to consider its legislative proposals? They must learn to treat our Parliament and this government with some respect.
Minister, briefly, we are very quickly running out of time.
That's fine, Presiding Officer. Thank you. Jim Fairlie is absolutely right. There is substance here and there is process, and both are important factors. I've expressed my disappointment with the timing of the UK Government's letter regarding the bill, with the invitation for Scotland to join the legislation coming the day before it was introduced to the UK Parliament, and they were briefing the media at the same time as doing that. Discussions of this nature should have taken place prior to the introduction of the bill, to enable the consideration of any divergence. And if the UK Government was genuine about its commitment to devolution, it would be serious in its cooperation with Scotland and with the other devolved administrations.
Stephen Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I welcome what the Minister said about being led by evidence, and I think it's wrong to set aside the science, as Jim Fairlie just suggested. We should be looking very carefully at what this science offers us as potential benefit. And NFUS Scotland believe, this is a statement of theirs, that GE offers the potential for Scottish farmers to meet the challenges such as climate change, plant and animal health and market competitiveness. When will the Minister next meet NFUS, and will she engage in a positive conversation with them and indeed the UK Government about the potential benefits that will be accrued to Scotland because of this science?
Minister.
I will meet NFUS when I attend the Royal Highland Show this week, and I have no doubt that this issue will come up, and I look forward to discussing it with them.
That concludes topical questions. The next